Crazy. We applied on a whim, like sent our video in. We're both longtime fans of the show, especially the American version. Sent a video in, didn't think anything of it. And then next thing you know, we're getting a call from producers. We proceed through the process, and then they give us a call and say, you're going to be on.
Hello, friends. I'm here with my friend Sam, someone who's been a longtime friend, but someone that we have a very unique experience. Sam and I have been at different times. I've been his boss and he's been my boss. We met at Laurier. Since then, we've been roommates. We've been friends. I've followed you on TV. Now I'm gonna let you actually introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you baited them there, so now I have to say yes. I was on TV.
What were you? When were you on TV?
Yeah, 2017. I was on The Amazing Race Canada.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So we're gonna definitely talk about your
Sure.
experience on The Amazing Race.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about, tell us. I think you as someone that I've seen their life have had one of the most interesting career pivots. Now I had said this with another friend, our friend Tyler, who also went through a career pivot, and I think there's just so much to learn from somebody who just was doing one thing, doing it well, but then decided to make a change.
Yeah. So
I think that's as good of a place as any to start. Like, tell us about, how you were doing so well in sales and you decided to make a change.
Yeah, sure. So, like you said, we met in school. I think at that point, I knew I really liked being at school. I didn't love the content as much as maybe I thought I did. I loved the atmosphere of university and I loved being involved in things outside of the classroom. But I was like, the logical next step is to go into sales because I'm a personable guy. It's what my dad did. It just kind of made sense. Ended up at Procter & Gamble, as you know, and I liked it. It's a great place to work. I was felt like managing my own business. And what really kind of got the wheels turning about wanting to get out of there was the fact that it didn't feel like a meritocracy. It felt like I felt like I was really good at what I was doing.
Right.
But just not progressing or getting challenged in the way that I felt I needed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you mean Sam, you're doing great. Congratulations on crushing your quarterly goals. You're on track for that promotion in 2 years.
Totally. Exactly what it was.
Yeah.
We do our promotions from band 1 to band 2 at the 1.5 year mark. And I knew I was going to be promoted with all of the other people whom I was outperforming.
Right.
Not everyone, but some of them. And I felt like I was doing a really good job. I was getting good feedback, and that's frustrating. I think that's frustrating to a lot of people.
Yeah. So I hear that totally. And I think that's been one of the interesting things as we've transitioned, in my experience from a small company to more of a mid-sized company. One thing that's amazing about small companies is if you crush it, you can grow so quickly. You can wear so many different hats.
Yes.
And so, but then I understand why these big companies, the Procter & Gambles, in my experience working at TD Bank, have these more prescribed routes.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to manage equity and fairness if some people are going leaps and bounds ahead of the other.
The flip side of that, though, is that you lose good talent.
Right.
Right? The great thing about a small company like Hosper is, there's 20 however many people. The wheat separates from the chaff very quickly, and there's opportunity to really make an impact.
Right. So the challenge is how do you retain those, the challenge for how do you retain small business strengths, some of that agility, some of that extra, tighter culture as you grow?
Yes.
And yeah, that's an interesting one. Not one probably to be solved here, but I think that you have, I don't think we're going to solve that one.
No, neither do I.
I think there's a lot of interesting things though, that I think there's a lot of life lessons to come from your experience. So up until this point, we've talked about you're at Procter & Gamble. You decide this is not for you. How do you make a decision of what to do next?
Yeah, I don't even know if I really knew. The lack of meritocracy was one thing, and then the other was I felt like I was selling Febreze. I was selling Febreze to big corporations, and I was like, deep down, I felt like I was destined for something bigger or destined to do something to make an impact somehow, positive one, ideally. So I just quit, and I was like, you know what? I think maybe I'll try medicine.
Right.
Yeah, it was not as thought out as I think people think it was.
It was very, what's this expression? Seat of the chair or whatever.
Yeah, by the seat of my pants.
By the seat of your pants.
Yeah,
Thank
like
you.
kind of like quite impulsive.
Right.
And I think, it comes from like a deep-seated confidence in myself that I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out.
Right.
But I think, well, like that seems like a good option. I can help people. There's a certain amount of prestige associated with, which I was interested as like a young 20-something.
Sure.
And I felt like it would be like a good path to a successful career and a successful life.
So, of course, we were roommates at that time. It was in our early 20s, right?
Yeah.
And so then you leave your stable job. You work for me part-time, we worked together. That was a fun experience. But that was part-time because at that time, that was when you were going on the journey. You got accepted to be on the Amazing Race Canada?
Yeah. If you remember, I went back to U of T because we went to business school. I hadn't done bio or chem or physics since grade 10.
But you had just applied to be in med school at that time?
While I went back and did a year of sciences at U of T, and while I was doing those, I applied to I wrote my MCAT.
Right.
But I gamed the MCAT.
Right.
And then applied to Mac only.
Right. And then so now you're presented in the midst of this amazing kind of life pivot.
Yeah.
You and your partner get to be on the Amazing Race Canada. We got to talk about that experience. That's such a unique experience.
Crazy. We applied on a whim, sent our video in. We're both longtime fans of the show, especially the American version. Sent a video in, didn't think anything of it. And then next thing you know, we're getting a call from producers. We proceed through the process, and then they give us a call and say, you're going to be on.
So this is another seat of the pants.
Yeah. I
decision.
think, seat of the pants are just going for things that interest you.
Cool.
I think that there's so much of the time, there's these opportunities, and we talk ourselves out of them without even putting our hat in the ring.
Right.
So Paul and I were just like, yeah, let's go for it. Threw our hat in there, and it worked out.
I don't think you've yet mentioned you won the Amazing Race.
Right.
You won how many legs of the trip?
So this was the whole crazy thing. We got on the show, and I was going to be away traveling with no access to anyone or any phones or any internet for 6 weeks, during which time I was planned on receiving my yes or no to medical school.
Right.
So we were on the raced around the world, raced around Canada, ended up winning 6 legs. We're the winningest Amazing Race team of all time.
Hey.
Across all,
ladies and gentlemen, my guest, the winningest Amazing Race Canada of all time.
At least we were at the time, and then we ended up winning the whole thing. So life-changing experience.
I remember signing the NDA. Can't say I remember.
Yes.
But I do remember, and we watched it after. You didn't come home and say, "Hey guys, I won."
No.
You came home and said, "Hey guys, we're gonna watch this every week."
But you knew.
Well, but the week you got home, you bought $10,000 worth of clothes. You always told me.
I hit Nordstrom, found like every personal shopper in the place. I was like, I need a new wardrobe.
Yeah, and I had a sneaking suspicion that you did all right.
Yeah.
So you know what? Like that is such a cool journey. And then on that show, I remember, the scene where you find out on live or on TV that you're accepted to med school. Must have been a cool way to find out.
Yeah, crazy. We were on the west coast of Newfoundland in Corner Brook, which is like a tiny town.
Right.
Shout out to the Newfoundlanders.
Right.
And found out from a video clue from my parents that I had gotten into medical school, which was like mind blowing. They're not a dry eye in the house. Everyone behind the cameras, Paul and I. It was really emotional, and I think kind of propelled us to the win because we didn't lose after that.
So obviously it's a fun story, good memories. What did you learn from that experience?
From the Amazing Race?
Yeah.
A couple things. I mean, it's a team event, so I think you really learn that. Especially someone who's so confident that you're not good at everything. And that
Amen to that.
Right? And the best way to succeed in life is to know what you're not good at and to have people around you who are good at those things. So, Paul it has strengths that I do not have, just as I have strengths that he does not have. And we were successful because we recognized who should do what. Who should take the lead when?
Right.
So that was, I think, one of the biggest takeaways for sure.
There's so many stories I love. Like I love the story that you told me about. Everyone's waiting in the airport, just kind of waiting for the flight, and you guys are going and memorizing maps. Like that level of effort was a cool one for me that I remember. Like, that's a fair edge that you took.
Or like, for example, we're flying to Newfoundland before the show starts. We know it's going to kick off in St. John's. So we land in the airport and everyone else is chatting, excited. We haven't started the race yet. And I'm memorizing the way from the hotel or from the airport to downtown.
Yeah, makes
so
sense.
that if and when we have to drive back, which we did, I don't have to stop for directions.
Cool.
Right? Like it's just like these little things that you can when other people are relaxing or maybe, taking a breath, if you decide you want to take the opportunity and go for it, you can.
I mean, like, success is built off of the 1% wins.
Totally.
You just do things a little bit different, a little bit better, like at such a small scale, but over time that compounds and you end up winning a leg or winning the race.
Yeah.
So that is a cool, but we got to move on. You've had so many interesting things in your life. Let's roll the clock back to when we got to know each other. Our time at Laurier, you were my boss as the head TA, but you were also the president of the student union.
Yeah.
So that's not like when I was the high school president where I just had a budget of like $1,000 to run a pep rally.
Yeah.
You were the budget of you were a paid. Talk to me about that experience
Sure.
as the president of the Wilfrid Laurier Student Union.
So Laurier is kind of unique in the sense that you're not just an elected official. You become president and CEO of the corporation that is the Students' Union. Mm-hmm. So you have a board of directors that are also elected that you report to monthly. You're paid a salary. You're given a place to live on campus, and you're managing a $13 million corporation. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty
sorry to cut you off there.
No, please.
But as a fourth or fifth year student, here's your $13 million budget.
Yeah. Hire people, fire people, manage HR issues with full-time staff, manage HR issues with students, discipline.
And after doing that, selling Febreze was not enough for you.
No, yeah, exactly. It was weird. It was a weird transition.
Right.
But an incredible experience. I mean, even going through that electoral process was also crazy.
Okay, so you have lots to draw from here. So I'm going to ask my favorite question. What did you learn from this? Whether either you want to call back to the election, the campaign, your time as the CEO of this corporation. What do you remember today, 10 years later? What did you learn?
I think I don't know. I think when people ask about the election specifically, between the two candidates, it was very close. It was a very close race. It was
Annie.
No, Chandler.
Ah, yes.
It was a really close race.
Yes.
It ended up 51-49 in terms of the percentage.
That's why you go vote.
Yeah, get out of there and vote. It makes a difference. But I was grossly underqualified compared to him in terms of my knowledge of the Students' Union, my experience in the Students' Union. So I don't know. I think, what I learned is that people is the most important thing. If you can make a good impression on someone, every interaction matters, make people smile, make them feel heard. Those are the things that have kind of permeated throughout all of these different career switches and life changes. Just putting people first.
That's a simple one, right? Just put people first. It's a simple wisdom.
It's so easy. My slogan was actually always putting you first.
Yes, I remember that with the bow tie.
Yeah, always putting you first.com. I actually don't think we have the domain anymore. But
well, whoever does is going to see a very significant, probably at least half a dozen.
Yeah, look out for that spike. Yeah. No need for SEO when you have us. But I think that was foreshadowing. I don't really think I knew what it meant at the time, but now, even in my role now, I think I always put either my colleagues or my patients first.
So, okay, let's now zoom back to now.
Yeah.
Okay, so now my business school friend is an emergency physician.
Yeah, crazy.
Is running an emergency room.
Yeah.
And helping people that are, of all areas and ailments.
Yeah.
What the heck is that like?
It's crazy. It's awesome. It is a culmination of kind of everything we've talked about. I get to work with people. I get to be my own boss. I get to make an impact. I get to help people. And it is amazing. Not a single regret about the switch. And
can it be thankless?
Yeah, it can be thankless. I mean, not every day is amazing.
Right.
What I tell people usually is that 1 out of every 5 or 6 shifts is gonna be bad.
Emotionally or what?
Yeah, people, you're there moving as fast, at least I am moving as fast as I can, trying to see people. But our healthcare system is one where the emergency room is a terrible place to be, especially right now. So people are miserable and they take it out on doctors and nurses,
right?
Especially nurses, but I get some of it too. So you'll have those days where patients are just like, for a lack of a better term, complete assholes. And we're still people,
right?
And that sucks.
Have you dealt with are you too young to be a doctor, Sonny?
Every day.
I know you're one of the most competent people I know. We're in our 30s here, but what's that like? How do you deal with that?
It depends on the tone and their intent behind it, which you can usually kind of suss out. So sometimes people will be straight up like, "How old are you? Are you old enough to be doing this?"
Right.
And my retort is usually, "Yeah, I'm old enough to be running the emergency department right now. But if you want to wait for the next doctor, you can sit here for another 6 hours."
Okay, good.
And
one.
that usually people backpedal and apologize.
Yeah.
If there's no malintent behind it, and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, you look so young. It feels like the doctors keep getting younger. Do you mind my asking how old you are?" And usually I'll say, "Yeah, like I am young. I also look young when I'm clean shaven." But I usually tell people you want a young doctor.
Sure.
You want someone who's trained on what's newest and is passionate and has that like that drive to want to help people still, which our healthcare system has a tendency to kind of slowly drain out of people.
Yeah, I dealt with that a lot in my earlier 20s. You know, selling investments in 24.
Yeah, I remember.
I used to. I'll be honest. I used to have a bit of a chip. Not much in my life has ever I've ever been bothered by something people say. But when someone asks you how old you are, out of nowhere, in the context of like, I can't change how old I am.
No.
I guess I don't get asked that anymore. Maybe maybe I'm gonna wish that.
Exactly.
I'm gonna wish I was getting asked more again, but one day.
I think I do. When I have those conversations, I feel like maybe I do have a little bit of a chip, and I think that will go away over time. It's not to say that I'm not confident in my skills, but it's the nature of a comment like that when you feel like you have to prove yourself.
Yeah, I used to have any number of kind of snarky responses. I think I used to say, I think I forgot how old I was genuinely, because when people would ask me, I would say I'm still in my 20s, trying to imply that I'm almost 30 when I was like 24, 25, 26.
Yeah.
And then I hit 30 and I'm like, wait, am I? And I also used to try to flip it, and I used to say how many deals I've done. Like I thought that mattered. But that's just a flex. I don't like any of that. Now I think I wish I just took the approach of like, why don't we talk for an hour?
Yeah.
And then figure out if that matters.
Exactly. Like I had a case the other day. This couple had been visiting from Colombia. He ran into a sign. He had a big cut on his forehead. So I walk in, and immediately his wife is like, "You're not old enough to be doing this." And I could tell she was just like, "This guy has no clue what he's doing." And I was just like, "Okay, well, here we go."
Yeah.
And I just laid him down, froze him, stitched him up, sent them on their way. And I think by the end, she was like, "Okay, he knows what he's doing."
Sure.
So I think the best thing is just to show people that you do know what you're doing. And if they don't want to accept it, that's on them.
Yeah. I think that's true words. So, I'm gonna keep asking my favorite question. What have you learned from this latest experience? So now you're in the emergency room.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, I have to share this. A lot of times when we're in, let's say, a boardroom with the sales team, and somebody is feeling overly stressed about their targets, or they're feeling, stressed about a deal's not closing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's going to close Monday, not Friday. I always remind themselves, it's okay. Yes, we want to give good service and we want to close the mortgage, but like nobody's going to die. That doesn't exactly apply to you.
No, people die.
So like, how do you cope with that level of stress? That really, the ante is upped.
Yeah, the ante is upped. I think that especially early on, like I have only been a staff physician for 9 months now. So that is still something many more senior physicians say it takes like 5 years to get completely over that like constant nagging fear of missing something or not being good enough, or like someone dying on our watch.
Right.
So that is stressful. But I think again, I feel competent. I'm very confident in my skills, and I care. So, I keep telling myself, if I were, I like to think that if I were coming into the emergency room, I would be happy to have myself as a doctor because I try and care and figure out what's happening with my patients.
Sure.
So yeah, that's definitely something that I worry about. I think also medicine just like it forces you into humility. Like if you don't have it, it forces you to develop some. Because knowing what you don't know in medicine is, I would say, far more important than knowing what you do know. So recognizing when you see a case and you're like, something is not adding up, rather than just chalking it up to being something benign, being like, I need to ask for help, or what am I missing? I'm missing something here and I need to figure out what it is.
And having the confidence to admit that you can't diagnose it because you don't actually know.
Which is a hard thing to do for physicians because we're all supposed to be equals.
Right.
So people, get their knickers in a knot when they have to go ask a colleague, be like, hey, I don't recognize what's happening here. Can you help me? So that's something that I was probably not good at before, but I'm much better at now.
Something that I'm going to guess you're good at is, let's call that the bedside manner.
Yeah.
So here's my question. It's not to tell you that I think you're good at that. I think I want to ask you, so put yourself as Sam, the business person running a business that is the emergency room.
Yeah.
What would you share? What have you learned about bedside manner that can apply to other people running businesses?
Yeah. I think this applies to all businesses, but there's a huge power dynamic between a patient who is ill and worried and scared and the doctor, especially a white male doctor who's like, I'm a pretty big guy. I have a loud voice.
Sure.
I command a presence. So I think immediately trying to equalize the power dynamic is something that I think about in terms of bedside manner. So I always sit. I always sit down when I'm talking to the patient. I get either lower than them or at their eye level. I introduce myself as Dr. Lambert, but then tell people to call me Sam.
Interesting.
Always. And a lot of my colleagues actually don't like that I do that because they're like, it's too buddy.
Right.
I don't think it's caused any issues for me. If anything, it's helped people open up.
So it's very intentional.
Yeah, it's very intentional. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I sit, I make people call me Sam. And I, just like anything, you try and ask some really open-ended questions to let people tell their story. It can get easier just be like, do you have chest pain? Do you do this? Yes or no questions in the emerge, but it's not allowing people to say how they feel, and you get some really good information when you do that.
And you must have to deliver bad news
all the time.
And I think that's something. So in many businesses, I think people are scared of giving bad news. Speak of myself in investment business. I think people respect the bad news if it's given proactively or straight.
Yes.
No one wants to have to ask to receive bad news.
No.
So what have you learned about giving bad news? Do you have any similar tips or tricks, like sitting at eye level, like introducing yourself?
Yeah, I always sit down. There's a model for delivering bad news that we're taught in our medical education, SPIKES. I can't remember what all the acronyms stand for, but essentially, you introduce yourself. You ask if they want anyone else in the room before you start the conversation. You ask what they know already about the situation. And if that's, if they're like, just get to the point, then you get to the point. So, it's similar. I sit down, I introduce myself, I ask if they want anyone there, and then I deliver the news really, really bluntly.
And there's no reason this has to be proprietary for medical professionals.
No.
Anyone that's giving bad news about a delayed construction project.
Yeah.
About damage to their property.
Yeah.
About an investment that didn't perform as expected.
Yeah.
They should follow this framework. And it's called SPIKES. We can look this up.
Yeah, you can look it up. Yeah.
Okay.
The SPIKES model for delivering
that.
bad news. I think also, something to think about in delivering bad news, and something that I've learned is language is extremely important in the medical field, just period, because of all the medical jargon. But sitting someone down and saying your loved one has died is very different than saying, unfortunately, they are no longer with us. People misconstrue things, wires are crossed, it's lost in translation. You need to be really direct and use words and language that are clear and sometimes difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, heavy topic to end on, but that is very potent. I love the idea of applying a framework that's designed for the most important conversations about the death or of their loved ones.
Yeah.
And saying there's no reason we can't apply that framework to the businesses that we run. So, hey, you know what? As a guest, you as a university politician, a Febreze salesman, a reality TV star, now emergency physician.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure, my friend Sam, to have you as a guest on the H Club podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.